Hello and welcome everyone to the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast, brought to you as always by the GSMC Sports Network. My name is Christopher Shepard, and today we have a great show lined up for you guys today, starting off with talking about the Panthers-Rangers Eastern Conference Finals. Game 2 in the NHL should be an exciting one. Then I'm also going to be taking a preview of another two conferences in terms of fantasy college football, so stick around for those. And last but not least, we'll be also looking at Wolves-Mavs Game 2 in the NBA, and also looking at ESPN's wide receiver rankings. Already did the QBs, already did the running backs. Why not now do the wide receivers for today's show? But as always, before we begin, I do want to ask that you do like and follow the show. Also, if you have any tips or donations, please leave them right here at the link gsmc.cloud. It is a huge support to both the network, to me, my fellow podcasters, so do please think about leaving a tip or donation. Anything is greatly appreciated. Also, open to any questions. I will answer them at the beginning of the next episode. Without further ado, let's get right into the show. Should be a very exciting one today, starting off with a game 2 between two of the NHL's best teams in the Eastern Conference Finals. The Florida Panthers and the New York Rangers should be a very exciting game after what turned out to be kind of a disappointing Game 1, where the Florida Panthers kind of went into MSG and did whatever they wanted with the New York Rangers. Now, in terms of betting odds for tonight's game, the Florida money line is at minus 115, the Rangers money line is at minus 110, and the Rangers are favored by 1.5 goals. They're giving 1.5 goals to the Florida Panthers. In terms of fantasy, the big two players that I want to highlight right now, I will get into some other players, but these two players are the ones that are the big ticket options for you today in terms of daily fantasy hockey. Matthew Tkachuk, valued at $14K in DraftKings. He is expected to have 17 FanDuel's fantasy points. And then Chris Kreider is valued at 11.5K. FanDuel, I made a mistake of saying DraftKings before, my mistake. He is valued at 11.5K, like I said, and he's expected to have 16.6 FanDuel's fantasy points. Now, I don't expect that this game or this series will come down to these two players. Obviously, I don't even think of Chris Kreider as the most integral option for the New York Rangers, because of the fact that the New York Rangers got here by being a very well-rounded team, both defensively and in terms of offense. They got contributions from all down the line, similar to that of the Florida Panthers. That is why I did not expect Game 1 to go the way it did, and I do not expect Game 2 to go the same way as Game 1 did. That being said, those two guys are two of the bigger options that I expect to perform in terms of both of these teams' best players. I think that Matthew Tkachuk, he's the heartbeat of this team ever since coming in from Calgary. He has been an explosive force for the Florida Panthers, elevated them to that status of being one of the best teams, not in just the Eastern Conference, but in all the NHL. And then Chris Kreider, what a Rangers legend he is, and I fully expect his numbers to hang from MSG's rafters when it's all said and done for him. But in terms of the series, he just needs to not only elevate himself and his own play, but those around him. I'm looking at players like Vincent Trocheck, Mika Zibanejad, and a still young line, Alexi Lafreniere, and guys like Capo Caco, Philip Hedl, obviously a huge piece that I thought was going to be much better than he is now because of what he did last playoffs, coming back from injury. But ultimately, I think that those two guys moving forward are the offensive fulcrums for both of these respective teams. Now, in terms of defense, I think that both of these goalies are also integral. Obviously, the guy Sergei Bobrovsky, coming off that huge shutout in Game 1, obviously came in on a heater. I think he was 4-1 in his last 5 games, had a crazy goals against average of like 1.62 or something. And also, he's just been absolutely fantastic as that last line of defense for the Florida Panthers, whereas a guy like Igor Shesterkin has kind of been disappointing, in my opinion, to open this series. I think Rangers fans obviously did not expect him to come out as flat as he did, give up an easy 3 goals. But at the end of the day, I think that Igor Shesterkin, is one of those players who can get hot at any time. He is going to help younger lines like the kid line get together, reintegrate their ideas, because obviously the Rangers, they're all about shifting from their more experienced players to younger lines and trying to integrate both youth and experience, both physicality and finesse into their squad. And I think that's why teams up to this point have had such a hard time of combating them. But if there is a team that I think could have, it is the Florida Panthers, and that's exactly what they did in Game 1. So look for in Game 2 the Rangers to want to integrate every single part of their lineup as quickly as possible to kind of confuse the Panthers and get back to what they know best. On the Panthers side of things, I think the keys for the Panthers is just to be themselves again. I think that the Panthers came out loose. They went into one of the best stadiums in all of sports and got a result they really wanted. I think that it was because of their own style and structure that they were able to get off to that hot start. I fully expect the Rangers to kind of combat that, but I still think that the Panthers will get their chances. Obviously, Igor Shesterkin is not feeling as confident as he has in the past. So I think that overall, this is going to be a close game again. I think that the Rangers have learned their lessons. I think that the young players are going to start getting more opportunities to play and get more experience. I think that I'm looking for Peter Laviolette to include a guy like Matt Rempe to add that physicality that the Rangers so desperately need to overcome the high danger scoring opportunities that the Florida Panthers will certainly get against Igor. So overall, I think this is going to be a much closer game. Getting back to those betting odds, I think I'm going to take the Florida Panthers money line on this one. I'm just more confident that Florida is very well structured. I think that they have more ideas. I think they just have more experience in terms of who they want out on the ice in any given situations. They can combat the Rangers' weaknesses when they put out their younger players onto the ice. So overall, I feel more confident in taking the Florida Panthers money line outright than in anything else in this game because of how well structured and the shocking nature they took Game 1. That being said, the over-under for tonight's game is at 5.5 points. I think I'm going to take the over on this one. I think that Florida's going to come out swinging yet again. There are high variations of whether they bring out a guy like Kachuk, a guy like Sam Bennett, whoever it is along those lines. They will come out confident. I still think that their worst lines are still much better than the Rangers' worst lines, so I think that ultimately Florida's going to score a lot of goals, in my opinion. I think this is going to be another testing day for Igor Shesterkin. But that being said, I think the Rangers will score some goals as well. I don't think that Sergei Bobrovsky is going to be on this heater for much longer. I think something will have to give for Sergei Bobrovsky in this game. So that is why I am taking the over in terms of goals. I think that in terms of fantasy, those two guys that I just mentioned, Kachuk and Kreider, are your safest bets to roster as either your captains or utility guy. Ultimately, I just think that they are the heartbeats of these respective teams, and I think that in order for their team to go, they have to go. So why not yourselves take a flyer on them for your daily fantasy hockey team, because they are such fantastic players, so well balanced, can create out of anything. And so I am confident in saying that they will be the people or the guys going forward in terms of daily fantasy hockey who I most rely on. In terms of goalies, they were nowhere to be found on today's FanDuel's projections. I was kind of shocked at that, but I'm not necessarily too shocked at that. I think that both of these goalies on any given night will face a number of chances because both of these teams are so well balanced, like I continue to say. But ultimately, if I were to rely on one over the other, it would be Sergei Bobrovsky. I think he's the hottest goalie in the playoffs right now. He's going to continue to elevate this team. I think the Panthers are the most confident team in the playoffs right now, and that will trickle down to each and every single one of them. That being said, I just can't see Igor Shesterkin breaking out of this slump. I think that as try as they might, the MSG faithful will not, elevate him because of how effective the Florida Panthers are in terms of sucking the life out of teams. That should just about do it for this segment. It was very exciting to look at this, which should be an interesting game too. But coming up next, after the break, we are going to be talking about the Big Ten in terms of fantasy college football. This conference has just been crazy in terms of who has been added. We're getting a UCLA-Rutgers game coming up next year. So that's something that I couldn't have even pondered. So it should be a very exciting segment. Stick around. We will be right back.